Hello, scholarly scholars. Greetings from Göteborg. Or actually, I'm technically recording this video from my little cabin in Tyresö. But as you're watching this, I'm in Göteborg, meeting with various principals of other IES schools on behalf of their union members. So here's what you're doing today. After your beloved sub has taken attendance, you're going to sit in your noteworthy quotes presentation groups. If you don't remember your group, your sub has access to the file right here, groups. I assume most of you will remember though. Groups of 4. One group is a group of 3. Okay, let's go through these slides, people. We have a long, boring video straight from your teacher lady. Oh, wait, as we're going through these slides, keep this in mind, keep your homework in mind. It's just to write a journal entry responding to one of the questions from these slides. So, as we go through, be thinking to yourself, do I want to write about that? Do I want to write a paragraph about that? 6 sentences? All right, here we go. Let's do this thing. Slide 1. Oh, these page numbers are from the old PDF that's no longer valid. Whatever, I don't care. Okay, can war be useful? This is what you're considering to yourself. So, from Goldstein's manifesto, here's a quote. The primary aim of modern warfare is to use up the products of the machine without raising the general standard of living. Ever since the end of the 19th century, the problem of what to do with the surplus of consumption goods has been latent in industrial society. In this context, latent just think of it as present. Okay, so in 1984, the machine has been created, and therefore production has been made extremely efficient. So what do we do with all this excess stuff? How do we keep the people oppressed while we have all this excess stuff, while everyone could be comfortable? Well, let's have continual war. Quote 2. The essential act of war is destruction, not necessarily of human lives, but of the products of human labor. War is a way of shattering to pieces or pouring into the atmosphere, whatever, or sinking in the depths of the sea, materials which might otherwise be used to make the masses too comfortable, and hence, in the long run, too intelligent. So, if the masses, the people, are comfortable enough to get an education, they're not so focused on survival that they actually get an education, they might become too intelligent and therefore overthrow the government. So the question that Orwell is posing here is, or that I'm posing to you, that Orwell is answering essentially, is can war indeed be useful to a totalitarian regime? So your beloved sub will pause this and you will discuss this question in your noteworthy quotes groups for 1 minute. Go! Welcome back. Was there any confusion there? You were discussing in English this question. And maybe you want to write your journal entry on this one. Maybe you don't. Let's move on. All right. Oh, here's an answer. Sorry about that. Okay. The consciousness of being at war and therefore in danger makes the handing over of all power to a small caste seem the natural, unavoidable condition of survival. Okay, so I answered my own question here. Sorry about that. If a population of any country feels that it's in danger, they're more likely to give a whole bunch of power to one person or one group. In IES 1984, Freudian slip. In 1984, the people have handed power over to the party, a small group. The oligarchy, remember? Rule by few. All right, so war is indeed beneficial to the government. Moving on. From the moment when the machine first made its appearance It was clear to all thinking people that the need for human drudgery, in other words, long, boring labor, and therefore, to a great extent, for human inequality, had disappeared. So, in 1984, the machine has made production of stuff so efficient that people hardly even have to, well, they still have to work, but they don't have to work as hard anymore. So, inequality is hardly even a thing anymore, unless the government makes it so. So do you agree? Do you agree that this is real? Has the machine in our society become a great equalizer? Do you think society can be equal because of the machine? Pause and discuss. Welcome back. All right, remember these discussions are 1 minute long. Next question. Do you agree that scientific progress depends on freedom? Okay, people, these questions are very philosophical. I hope you're able to discuss them. I know many of you are able to discuss them. I hope you're not bored by this. Okay, science and technology were developing at a prodigious speed. Prodigious is like high, crazy, big, strong. And it seemed natural to assume that they would go on developing. This failed to happen, partly because of the impoverishment, poverty, caused by a long series of wars and revolutions, partly because scientific and technical progress depended on the empirical habit of thought, which could not survive in a strictly regimented society. Okay, let me explain this quote. So before the party took over, science and technology were skyrocketing, like in our society today, in Western society. Science is speeding ahead. We have freedom of thought in our society today, mostly. Okay, well, there's impoverishment because of wars and revolutions. And as society, under the party, became more strict and regimented and controlled, the habit of thought disappeared. In other words, personal thought. Empirical just means based on experience and observation. So let's ignore the word empirical for now and just keep this in mind. Under the party, people do not have freedom of thought. So Orwell's theory, expressed through Goldstein, is that scientific progress requires freedom. People need to be able to think for themselves. Do you agree? Pause. Discuss. My cake is... That's my timer for my cake. I'm baking a cake. My cake is done. Okay. Anyway, next. Here's a question. If we educate the lower classes, will they sweep away the elites? Here's a quote. But it was also clear that an all-round increase in wealth threatened the destruction of a hierarchical society. Okay, I need to put this cake down. I'm back. Okay, so a hierarchy is where people are not equal. It's like you have different classes and someone at the top. Pronunciation, I've heard hierarchical, but I've also heard hierarchical. Hierarchy or hierarchy, depending on how fast you're saying it. Anyway, okay. If leisure and security were enjoyed by all alike, the great mass of human beings who are normally stupefied by poverty, in other words, made dumb by poverty, would become literate. They would learn to read and would learn to think for themselves. And when once they had done this, they would sooner or later realize that the privileged minority, the elites at the top, had no function, and they would sweep it away. Okay, so Goldstein or Orwell is saying through Goldstein that the machine created efficient production, which created wealth, which created equality. Equality among the masses. So the party wants a hierarchy. The party wants power. That is the party's primary goal. Power. So if all the people enjoy free time, leisure, and security, safety, then they're going to have time to educate themselves. They're going to learn to read. And once they learn to read, once they're educated, they'll just kick out the elites. Now, you and I live in a society that is much more equal, much less hierarchical than 1984, where education is obligatory. Have you seen that the lower classes are sweeping away the elites? Discuss. Pause. Welcome back. Next. Here's a question. So shall we not simply cultivate our garden? Okay, so this is my question. Cultivate our garden, that's from Voltaire's famous book, Candide. You might have heard of it. So in the book Candide, or in French, Candide, the main character goes on all these adventures, crazy adventures, has extreme luck and extreme tragedy and luck and tragedy. And then finally at the end, he just decides that the best thing to do in life is to mind his own business and to work in his garden. Okay, and that's actually not a spoiler. I mean, that's kind of a spoiler, but if you ever hear the phrase, let's just cultivate our garden, it's from Candide. All right, so here's the quote. To return to the agricultural past, as some thinkers about the beginning of the 20th century dreamed of doing, was not a practicable solution. Any country which remained industrially backward was helpless in a military sense, and was bound to be dominated directly or indirectly by its more advanced rivals. All right, so the reason I ask this is because I've met a lot of people, usually leftists, who just want to return to an agricultural society. Let's move out to the countryside and have farms. Let's eat organic, locally produced food, and let's live close to the land. What Orwell is saying through Goldstein is that there were people who wanted to do this, but countries weren't willing to do this, to go back to this kind of idealized farming society, because then they wouldn't have strong militaries. They would be technologically backward. So what do you think? Do you think society should be more like, let's mind our own business, let's just have our own gardens, like in Candide? I recommend Candide, by the way. It's, like I said, a great adventure and then also philosophical. Or do you think countries need to be advanced in technology and military? Discuss. Pause. Okay, moving on. Here's the question. Does multiculturalism decrease fear and hatred in society? Okay, so if a society is more diverse, does it decrease fear and hatred of the other? That's my question for you. Here's a quote it's based on. War prisoners apart, the average citizen of Oceania never sets eyes on a citizen of either Eurasia or East Asia. Remember, Sweden would be in Eurasia. Okay, in 1984. And he's forbidden the knowledge of foreign languages. So you guys would be, you wouldn't be allowed to learn English being part of Eurasia. You would be fluent in Russian in the book 1984. Anyway, if he, in other words, the citizen of Oceania, if he were allowed contact with foreigners, he would discover that they are creatures similar to himself, and that most of what he's been told about them is lies. So all the 2 minutes hate, all that hatred that he's fed about the enemy, he would realize once he met the enemy, oh, he's a normal guy. The sealed world in which he lives would be broken, and the fear, hatred, and self-righteousness on which his morale depends might evaporate. Your morale is like your, how you feel. If you feel good, you have good morale. Do you agree? Do you agree with Orwell that once? I mean, this is similar to Outsiders, the book we read last year, right? When Ponyboy kind of gets in contact with some of the socios individually and realizes that they're just normal humans. They have problems too. But okay, in society that's more diverse, you sometimes have more hatred. It depends on where you are. So what do you think? Discuss. Pause. Okay, welcome back. Oh, this isn't a question. This is just a statement. The promised victories are lies. I just wanted to make sure you understood this. The three superstates, Oceania, Eurasia, East Asia, not only cannot conquer one another, but would gain no advantage by doing so. On the contrary, so long as they remain in conflict, they prop one another up like three sheaves of corn. I find that fascinating. So the three superstates, they always talk about how we are going to win. We will someday conquer the world, but none of them would actually benefit from winning because they need this constant warfare in order to keep up their totalitarian regimes. Remember, all the three superstates are all totalitarian. What are they called again? In Oceania, it's Ingsoc. In East Asia, it's obliteration of the self / death worship. And it's neo-Bolshevism in Eurasia, where you live, where we live. Sweden / Russia / many other countries. Next. Okay. Oh, this is also just a comment. Creepy. Nothing is efficient in Oceania except the thought police. Ooh, I asked a Russian friend to record something for you. Just a sec. Okay, so the thought police is highly reminiscent of the KGB, which was like the secret police in the Soviet Union. Very similar. Okay, so here's how you pronounce the Russian of KGB.
Комитет государственной безопасности. КГБ.
KGB, KGB. I don't know if you could even hear that. Anyway, the KGB was founded in 1954, though. So the Thought Police would not be based on the KGB because the book was written in 1948. Published in 49. Could have been based on the Gestapo in Nazi Germany. Gestapo, secret police, Nazi secret police, they were founded in 1933. But Stalin did. So Stalin died in 53. You know what? Let me Google it. Let me show you. Yeah, okay. Stalin died in 53, and the KGB was founded in 54. But there still was a secret police under Stalin called NKVD, with my American accent. So it's possible that Orwell's thought police were based on the NKVD and the Gestapo. Anyway, back to the slides. Okay, so my point with this slide is just to remind you that very little in Oceania is actually efficient except for the secret police. Oh geez, I forgot I included this picture. This is a picture of, it was found in records in Dresden, in Germany, East Germany, of Putin's service with the KGB in Germany. Okay, moving on. So yes, Putin was in the secret police for years, for like 15, 16 years. Okay. Okay, this is just, you don't have to discuss this. This is another bit of info for you. Remember that oligarchy means rule by few. Collectivism means ownership by all, kind of. And collectivism also means society is more important than the individual. The group is more important than one person. Here's the quote. The only secure basis for oligarchy is collectivism. Wealth and privilege are most easily defended when they're possessed jointly, together. All right, so in 1984, the party keeps power, the oligarchy of the power, of the party keeps power because everyone owns everything together. Keep that in mind. It's like even you read this in the manifesto, or not manifesto, the book. The outer party has more privileges and wealth than the proles. The inner party has more privileges and wealth than the outer party. But, my oven's off now. The inner party still lives, compared to us, compared to you guys, the inner party still has way less wealth than you. Like O'Brien lives a very strict, sparse life compared to you. Everyone owns everything together. Moving on. Here's the question that you will discuss for 1 minute. Do you agree that this, quote here, is a recipe for eternal rule? For if you want to become a tyrant, if you want to become the despot of Sweden / the world, should you do this? Here's the quote. There are only 4 ways in which a ruling group can fall from power. Either it's conquered from without, or it governs so inefficiently that the masses are stirred to revolt, or it allows a strong and discontented middle group to come into being, or it loses its own self-confidence and willingness to govern. These causes do not operate singly, and as a rule, all 4 of them are present in some degree. A ruling class which could guard against all of them would remain in power permanently, forever. Okay, so here's my summary of the quote. If you want to stay in power, let's say you want to become a tyrant, the ruler of the world, and stay in power forever, here's what you should do, according to Orwell. Avoid the following, according to Orwell. Don't be defeated by another country. Don't be inefficient so that your people revolt against you. Don't let a middle class, don't allow a middle class take over. Don't allow the middle class to take over. Or don't lose interest in ruling. Do you agree with that? That's the question. Can you think of anything else that could make you lose power if you were a tyrant? Discuss. Pause. Okay, moving on. I'm sorry if this is just wildly boring, but I find it interesting. Okay, here's your question. Would you rather be an inner party member or an outer party member or a prole? Here's a quote. Between the 2 branches of the party, there's a certain amount of interchange. In other words, between the outer party that Winston is in and the inner party that O'Brien is in. There's some people who can float between those, or who can move between those. Okay, but only so much as will ensure that weaklings are excluded from the inner party and that ambitious members of the outer party are made harmless by allowing them to rise. It's a good sentence. Proletarians, in practice, are not allowed to graduate into the party. The most gifted among them, who might possibly become nuclei of discontent, are simply marked down by the thought police and eliminated, in other words, killed. So, if there are some weaklings in the inner party, they might be demoted to the outer party. If there are some very smart and ambitious people in the outer party, they might be brought into the inner party in order to make sure that they don't revolt, to make them harmless. Give them power, a little bit of power, and they won't want to take all the power, you know? But the proles, they have a lot more freedom. They just drink a lot of beer, they play a lot of sports, they bet on a lot of sports, they're super into gambling, they have a lot of sex, they're allowed to wear makeup and kind of do what they want, but they're extremely, extremely poor, and almost none of them can read. Very uneducated. So, What would you rather? Be a prole, inner party, or prole, outer party, or inner party? Pause, discuss. Next. Here's the question. There are no official laws in Oceania, but people are still punished. Would you be vaporized? Would you be killed if you lived in Oceania? If you were in the story? Here's the quote. Thoughts and actions which, when detected, mean certain death are not formally forbidden, and the endless purges, arrests, tortures, imprisonments, and vaporizations are not inflicted as punishment for crimes which have actually been committed, but are merely the wiping out of persons who might perhaps commit a crime at some time in the future. That's crazy. So it's like, oh, this person looks a little dangerous. Let's kill him. That's what happens in 1984. All right, so back to the question at hand. Would you be killed if you lived in Oceania? Would you be one of the dangerous ones? Dangerous? Discuss. Pause. Next. Okay, I guess this isn't a question. Whoa, I said. Okay, I'll try to figure out how to explain this to you if you don't get it. Even in using the word doublethink, it's necessary to exercise doublethink. For by using the word, one admits that one is tampering with reality, messing with reality. By a fresh act of doublethink, one erases this knowledge, and so on indefinitely. Okay, some of you probably got this, but if you didn't, let me try to explain. So, now let me think of a good example first. All right, so here's an example. Let's pretend we're all citizens of Oceania right now instead of Eurasia. Okay, so here are these two things we're holding in our heads. Thing one, we've been at war with Eurasia for years. Now suddenly, we're at war with East Asia, and the party wants us to believe that we've always been at war with East Asia. The party wants us to believe one thing. But the fact is, there are two things we're holding in our heads. War with Eurasia, war with East Asia. Okay, so the very word doublethink entails two things, but the party wants us to believe one thing. So like the quote says, the very word doublethink requires doublethink to forget that we're messing with reality in the first place, because the party wants us to believe one thing, not two. Okay, if you're totally baffled, totally confused by that, don't worry about it. I just found this quote super interesting. Whoa. Next. Oh, done. Good job. You made it through all the slides. This is a 28-minute video. Okay. I hope you had a bit of fun discussing. I hope you were able to discuss some ideas. Back to my website. You presumably have time left in class to get your homework done, so you won't have homework today before tomorrow. Write a paragraph about one of these slides. Your beloved sub has access to these slides by clicking here. If you can't remember what to write about, if you didn't decide while you were discussing. Have fun! Tomorrow there will be computers. I will still be in Göteborg, but if you have any questions, I might be in a meeting with the principal, so you can't ask your beloved sub to call me, but you can email me. I'll still be working. I'll still have internet access. And you can... you'll be typing up more of a response to this. That's what you're doing tomorrow. Okay. Anything else? Have a great day. Get your homework done. Bye.